Hey everyone, I'm Eli King, everyone's favorite roofing contractor, and I'd like to welcome you guys to the very first episode of the Roofing Mastermind right here in Denver, Colorado, where we're really going to be diving into roofing products and services, insurance claims and storm restoration, warranties, salesmanship, and anything surrounded around roofing. And we're going to be meeting with some of the top people in the roofing industry. Today, we have a special guest here from Precise Roofing in Denver, Colorado. He's been in the roofing industry for around 30 years, and he has at least 20 years experience in commercial roofing. So we're going to be introducing him in a few seconds, and I just want to take 1 minute to give a shout out to our sponsors, The Roofing Broker, for helping provide this platform for us to discuss, talk, and dive into the roofing industry. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give us an introduction to Ben Laird from Precise Roofing. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing great, Eli. Thanks for inviting me over. It's a great privilege and honor to do this on your show.
So I guess something that I want to really ask is, how did you really first get into the roofing industry? Like, what brought you into the roofing industry, and what kept you interested for 30 years and staying here?
So I first got in the roofing industry like in the middle of my high school years in the summer. I had a really good friend, family friend, a couple of years older than me. He had his own roofing company at a young age. And another good friend of mine, he had a roofing company too. And I got into working for them and helping him out and doing roofs and stuff. And we did a lot of residential and a lot of commercial. And this was in Northwest Illinois. And we didn't have a lot of the migrant workers there. I worked mostly with a lot of white guys that did roofs and whatnot. And it was a hard job. And it was the only job at that time that I could get and make decent money, but I worked hard. So,
Right.
and I took a lot. I learned a lot from a lot of those guys. Two of my mentors had actually passed away last year. Both of them passed away, pancreatic cancer. And I had my own employee that I brought back from back home that I grew up roofing with. He passed away from pancreatic cancer as well.
And back home is Illinois?
Yes, sir. So I grew up in Northwest Illinois in the tri-state area, Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And then so I worked for that doing roofing for several years. And then in 2003, I joined Local 11 Roofers in Chicago. I live 90 miles from Chicago, so I drive 90 miles to work, and I drive 90 miles home every day, and work started at 5 a.m. We had to head up that ladder to get on them commercial roofs. It was hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was days I was on the roof. I didn't understand life, and I had friends that had silver spoons, and I was up on the roof shoveling potato rock all day long, every day for days in the hot sun. It takes a toll on you mentally, emotionally, and physically. One of the hardest jobs I've ever had in my life. So I did that, and then for several years, and then in 2009, I had my parents. They live in Colorado. It's where they're from. So I came out to visit them for Thanksgiving, and ended up hooking up with an old high school friend, and I ended up moving out here with her, and we had a son. So I ended up staying here for good, and then I got a job for a commercial roofing company, Alpine Roofing, here in Denver. They've been around since the 60s. Pretty good company, a really good name, and they do a lot of institutional, industrial, government type work, and they focus big time on maintenance and repairs.
So would you actually say that when you got into the roofing space initially, it was really about like being a real roofer, like the tear off, the replacement? It wasn't anything about the salesmanship or the selling jobs. It was definitely more along the lines of you being a laborer, correct?
Absolutely. I was 100% the laborer. I was tearing the roofs off, and I was cleaning up the mess, and pretty much doing all that. And then once that was all done, we had to cater to the actual roofers. They'd yell at you for nails and yell at you for water, yell at you for this. And then the thing I looked forward every day is when that truck was full of trash and I got to drive it to the dump, because that was my break. So
Right.
yeah, that was the hard part. And then later on, I had some other people who, they gave me the opportunity to start teaching me how to actually put down the roofs and stuff like that. And that's when I started to make more money and life got better for me. So.
Okay, yeah. So, at what point in the process, and so you talked a little bit about residential, and I just want to kind of shift a little bit just towards like roofing sales, right?
Mhm.
And me personally, I do a lot of storm restoration roofing. I mean, I will bid and perform, jobs on retail jobs when they come
Mhm.
about. So I don't really care either way. But as far as like kind of transitioning, and I know you still actively do like patch and repair
Mhm.
and go out. We've went on a huge hotel tile roof project I had, and we, in a few minutes, despite the wasps everywhere, you had peeled back a bunch of tile and we were able to diagnose and you were able to put it back together. So I know you're very much like active in that process still, but at what point did you make a shift into like roofing sales?
I'd say while I was working at Alpine Roofing, I actually learned how to do tile roofing repairs at Alpine Roofing. One of my coworker Miguel that I worked with side by side for 3 to 5 years. I'm still really really good friends with, and we still talk a lot. He taught me how to do a lot, and I learned when I was working at Alpine for those 5 years that a lot of customers would tell us, "Oh, we called 5 roofers and none of them do tile repairs, and somehow we got your number." And so over the years I did hundreds of tile repairs for Alpine Roofing, and a lot of those people got my phone numbers and they reached out to me, and then a lot of other roofers would get my number and they reach out to me when they have tile repairs, or they'll refer me to people, and I would literally make more money on one day doing a tile repair than I did for a whole month working for Alpine.
Mm.
And then I moved on to another roofing company and it was the same situation over there. I wasn't never really making a whole lot of money at that company, and I made the money on the side. That's where I made the money, and that's how I paid my bills. So that's where it transitioned to doing the repairs, and that's how I learned how to sell repairs.
Mhm.
And working at Alpine, I learned how to do all the commercial repairs, and I started learning out how much cost and what was in it and what it took to do it.
So something like I hear a lot of contractors, and I'm primarily residential, and of course I've done several commercial projects throughout my career and just different things and other flat roofing systems. But I would say I'm a shingle guy, right? Just for
Mhm.
me. So I hear a lot of people that are like in my position and they talk about like commercial roofing with these dollar signs in their eyes, like there's just this huge money. And I do understand that like a full replacement is definitely going to yield, a nice commission check. However, in your experience, typically acquiring like a commercial roofing project never usually starts out as full replacement, or it's not as easy as like, hey, Mark, how's it going? I just noticed a couple shingles flipped over. Hey, sign here. Let's call in the insurance claim and your roof's built next month.
Mhm.
That's not really how it works. You're not right with the decision maker. So, if there was someone that was trying to get into commercial roofing and they needed to like understand like pacing themselves and really putting it out there, would you suggest shooting for like repairs, maintenance plans? Like, what would you suggest to keep the bills paid until that storm happens or that full replacement happens or that coating job kind of
Mhm.
happens?
Yeah, it's tough for a lot of people. If you're going to get into commercial roofing, it's an absolute must that you have a really good, well versed service tech who knows how to fix all types of commercial roofing, whether it's TPO, PVC, modified, um, cold applications, built up gravel, a lot of that. And I teach people a lot on
Mm.
built up gravel roofs. I teach a lot of subs how to repair them, how to do it right, and they do a good job at the end of the day. And to get into that commercial game, that service tech is absolutely important. They're the face of your company.
Mm.
They're going out every day. They're inspecting leaks. They're making the repairs, and most of all, it's important that you don't have callbacks.
Mm.
When you're working for management companies or big organizations and commercial properties, when they get a leak, they got a damaged ceiling.
Mhm.
So I go in assisted living homes quite often, and they have the ceiling out, the walls. They got dehues in there. This serious stuff. They got people that are out of their units, and they don't they want, when they expect you to pay you when you fix this leak, they expect you to show up immediately. They expect you to fix it immediately, and they expect you to fix it correctly because they want to put that ceiling back together and they want to get their tenants back in there. And when that's done, they don't want to, the next time it rains, could be 3 days from now after they just painted the ceiling, the paint hasn't dried yet and it's leaking again. So callbacks are huge, and getting the guys out there is huge to make those repairs. I have one customer has 450 assisted living homes, and I do repairs for them a lot. And it's important to have 0 callbacks.
Okay, so like if I was to, we'll just say, and I offer commercial roofing services. You're pretty familiar. When I have questions or concerns, I reach out to you. I do have Precise Roofing on the Roofing Broker website, which is another company of mine. And you would be one of the 3 people I would recommend out for different commercial projects. But if I was to like start a commercial division, you're telling me that is as important as having crews for full replacement is, as important as having marketing for it, is just as important as having salesmen to sell the jobs. The service tech is going to be the pivotal foundation behind it. So treating that individual correctly, paying them properly. So what does like a pay structure look like for them? Because in sales, oftentimes there's profit splits in roofing, meaning if the salesman gets the job at X amount of dollars, the total cost plus overhead, whatever profits remaining is split, or oftentimes it's percentages of jobs, etc. So when hiring a service tech, how do I decide how much of that job goes to that individual, because they seem to be as important as the TPO roofing system that they're fixing?
Mm-hmm. So the service techs a lot of times are hourly workers, and you pay them a salary. And the salaries for service techs in the Denver market is anywhere from $35 to $40 an hour, believe it or not. And I challenge anybody to go out and try and find a service tech at that price that's well-versed. You'll have 10 guys come in, and them 10 guys will say they know how to do everything. And you'll get them out on the roof, and they don't know how to do, all 10 of them don't know how to do it. So to find that positive service tech who can facilitate all that, it's a diamond in the rough. And I mean, I've heard my previous employer is still trying to replace me, and I've been gone for 14 months, and I heard it from somebody that happens to work there. And I mean, when I left, they had 3. I think I worked there for 10 years, and the last year I worked there, they didn't have any service techs. I was the service department manager. I was the service tech. I was the safety guy. I was the inspector. And a lot of times I was the problem solver. I had to go out and deal with homeowners directly who didn't want to pay their bills. And it's tough to find somebody these days who has a driver's license in the roofing industry, somebody who has a good driver's license, who can, and believe it or not, can speak English and has proper demeanor and knows how to talk to people, because it's important to know how to address customers.
Yeah. So, essentially what you're looking for, and it sounds like it would be kind of difficult to cultivate an individual like that. And we're going to move topics here in a second, but I just want to kind of touch on this. So as an example, when I'm hiring a roofing sales rep, there's a process and a strategy that I teach them to sell residential roofing. And obviously the first thing is identifying the different facets of a roofing system, explaining to them what soffit is, what fascia is, what drip edge is, what underlayment is, what proper ventilation looks like, how to count numbers of squares, just the basic things, obviously, but really going out and identifying. And so I would say that like a roofing salesperson is more of a problem identifier. And what you're saying with these technicians is it's more of a problem solver or fixer. It has to be somebody that can not only identify what the issue is, but really be hands-on to fix it. And you also mentioned, so If I'm doing the math right, you got, 15 years at one company or 16, 17 years at one company, and you got, 10 years at another company. And so you were literally involved in the tear off and replacement of many different roofing systems. And so basically finding somebody with that type of experience that is, still involved is going to be difficult. What would be a path of cultivating someone like that?
Um, a lot, a lot of the times today is finding somebody with general knowledge of roofing. Um, you can teach them a lot,
Mhm.
but to teach a good service tech, you're going to need someone with good service tech knowledge to teach and train them, and that generally takes about 2 years to get somebody tuned into most roofing products and applications. Once they're in about 2 years, they'll go out on their own, and you can trust them with an apprentice, and they can facilitate the repairs, and they can bring the repairs back to you if they have questions. You can go over the estimates with them, help them create estimates. Um, that usually takes a couple of years, and a lot of times my service techs aren't going to be out selling full roof replacements. My service techs are out there to keep my clients happy, and until it's time for them to get a new roof. Eventually, they'll get a roof. Colorado
Right.
also is one of the second highest hail claim states in the country, so it's a good possibility that hail can destroy that roof,
Hmm.
and that's another issue. A lot of times, there's hail, and it doesn't take hundreds of hail strikes. You need one hail strikes that's factually leaking, and you just need the insurance carriers to prove and identify liability for something. And
Mhm.
once they assume liability, that's when I come in and I get that whole roof replaced.
Okay. So you have some experience in storm restoration roofing and
Mhm.
helping navigate the insurance process for major commercial projects. So let me ask you, because there's several different types, and you named off a few earlier, and I'll ask you to name them again. But there's several different types of commercial roofing systems,
Mhm.
and you talked about PVC, which I know when hail hits that, it just kind of spider webs it. It really is easy to identify, right? But you also talked about TPO. Can you name a few different types of roofing systems and then really identify with me which ones would be easier to acquire damage from, we'll say, 2-inch hail?
I definitely, PVC, the acronym is polyvinyl chloride. It's like a convertible top on a car. We all know what they look like when they sun faded. They get really brittly, crumbly,
Yeah.
break down. They're susceptible to damage.
Hmm.
Um, PVC is generally used on roofs that have grease traps and stuff like that. It's a phenolic material. It doesn't break down from grease.
Okay.
So it's strongly encouraged on roofs with grease traps. TPO is a really common uh, nowadays roofing product material. It's the acronym for TPO is a thermoplastic overlay.
Okay.
So it's made of a poly, and I encourage PVC and TPO over any other roofing system because TPO and PVC versus your asphaltic roofs or your rubber roofs or your
And when you
hot
say
roofs,
rubber roof, you're talking like
EPDM.
EPDM.
Yep.
Okay.
And the reason, because with EPDM, you clean, prime, and glue the seams.
Hmm.
And about year 20, the details start to, like the seams and the details start to peel.
Hmm.
And versus TPO and PVC, the seams don't peel, and they
Okay.
don't separate because they're welded. We use hot air welders and sometimes and robots, and they get up to 900 degrees. And
Oh, really?
when they're welded together, they're married, so they don't leak. They usually, if they're leaking, it's because the application was wrong. They didn't use termination strip or or RTS strip at the parapet walls. I worked for an employer who did this to a couple major roofs, large commercial scale roofs, and where one roof completely blew off and landed on a parking lot and broke the director's neck.
So let me ask. So when you say it completely blew off, so we're talking about around the seams, and we're talking about a TPO on this one that
Yes.
blew off. Okay. So we're talking about welding around the seams, and the less likelihood of it coming apart as opposed to EPDM and the way that does. So you're saying that somewhere on the roofing system, it was allowing wind to get underneath of the seams. It wasn't sealed properly.
Yes. It started usually at the where the roof to walls are. At the parapet, you'll start seeing the walls bridging.
Okay.
And then once that starts bridging and air gets in there, it just starts blowing up like a big trampoline. A lot of roofers have seen familiar pictures of this. It literally looks like a KOA bouncy house. It's not safe to be on. So it's just a lot of application problems like that are being done properly. And being a service tech for the last 15 years and running a service department for a major roofing company, I've seen all the problems because I worked for a high-run production company. It was more production than quality, and the things that I saw that were going on and stuff, they were unforeseen or they were hidden from the owner of the company. It was frowned upon to even talk about it, But with me believing in strong ethics, I always stress this to the owner, like, this is going on. This shouldn't be happening. And, because at the end of the day, it was the owner of the company that wrote my check. Mm-hmm. It wasn't this commercial manager,
Right.
We could blame everything on the manager, but at the end of the day, it's the owner of the company that ultimately signs that check, and he's ultimately responsible for everything.
Right, honoring the warranties and all of those things. So we've definitely, seen a lot of disasters in any type of construction field. When you begin to cut corners, obviously it can cause significant problems down the line. Bidding jobs properly, making sure crews are properly trained to do things, making sure inspections are going on, pre-roof, mid-roof, post-roof inspections. I believe Denver requires all of that for any commercial project now. And I just kind of want to switch gears just a little bit. But before I do that, I do need to take a second to give a shout out to our sponsors, The Roofing Broker. They provide quality telemarketing appointments for roofing companies all over the country in storm zones. So if you are a company looking to get your team on roofs, they love to tell us if you want to build your dream, then you must feed your team. And so it's time to get set up with some pre-set roofing inspections, leads set by roofers for roofers. Okay. And so I want to just come back here and I just want to ask, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out into the commercial roofing space, salesman?
I stressed this a lot with a previous employer. If you want to get into commercial sales, it's extremely important. I would get out there with the service tech when he goes out on repairs, or if the company you're working for is doing commercial roofing, get out there with them and learn the process. Learn how the roofs are tore off, learn how they're put on, because you can't sell a job or build a job or know what it's going to cost to build it if you don't know how the roof goes on. And that's probably the most important thing.
Okay, so if getting them the experience and following along and kind of seeing the processes and procedures. Now, I've talked with you on several different accounts in the difficulties in finding quality salesmen, at least in our market. I know that at my other company, we'll hire 11 people or so. 5 will show up to training. Training's 4 days long. By the end of it, 2 or 3 are there. If there's 3, by the end of the month, there's 1 or none. And so I understand pretty much anywhere in business right now, it's difficult to find employees of any capacity, but roofing sales really has a opportunity to generate nice income for somebody on a very entry level. What do you think is the holdup, or what is kind of causing the lack of retention for quality roofing salespeople?
The problem with, with commercial roofing is when you sell a commercial roof, or even when you're dealing with the insurance company, it could take a year to 2 for the insurance company to even approve that roof if it's insurance and storm related. So when you're doing that, most salesmen they're not going to sit in there for a year or 2 to sell a roof. They're going to give up. they got to make money, and it's my job to help them make money. And so I have to push them along the way and help them. When I bring guys in, I brought a friend in to sell roofs last year, and a very, very dear friend of mine. I taught him a lot about commercial. I've been teaching him over the years about commercial and about maintenance and selling repairs. And I was paying him straight 50% commission. It's unheard of. Zero office cost. I mean, this guy was making money. I gave him great commercial jobs and leads, and they were my leads. And one job, I paid him $58,000 profit check on a really small job.
$58,000, that's, a lot of people's average annual income, and sometimes less than that. So you're saying that's one job, one project, 58,000. So you've had Precise Roofing for about 15, 16 months now.
Actually, we've been licensed for 11 years.
Oh, for 11 years. But I mean, branched off to just full-time operate it yourself over the last 15, 16 months.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, you and your business partner, obviously.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so in that amount of time, what is the single-handed largest individual commission check, not multiple jobs piled up, that you've written? Would it be that 58,000? Because that's a nice number. I mean,
I've personally, I had a 25 square roof. I made over $100,000 on. A 7-Eleven roof.
Oh, really?
Everybody knows how big a 7-Eleven is. It's not very big.
So you made $100,000 in profit, or the company, the gross job cost was $100,000, and then you're at a 40-50% profit margin?
That job was my business partner and I's. My business partner's father owns a lot of Mexican restaurants. He has a business partner that owns a lot of Mexican restaurants as well, and it was a personal building that he had owned. And my business partner and I, we made that money, and we kept that money in our business to grow and scale our company.
Okay, but if you were to just talk about for salespeople, not for you guys, as if anyone that's worked at your company over the past 11 years and or even just the past 15 months, single-handedly, what would you say is the largest commission check?
If they have the largest commission check that I single-handedly wrote a salesman was for $58,000, and it was a small job. The big jobs I pretty much did myself, and that was before we had salesmen. And I did a job for 280 squares when we started this company, like when me and my business partner actually joined forces 14, 15 months ago. So that job, technically, I mean, if I had $1 million job, the profit margin could be 200 to 300,000.
Really? Okay. So as a commercial, sales rep, obviously we're talking longer time frames on payouts, but the payout is a lot greater. I think a lot of people stick with residential, and at least I know for myself, doing residential sales is the easy path to the payday, meaning I'm going to meet with the decision maker right now. I'm going to be able to communicate the entire job with that decision maker. I'm going to get the contract right out of scope of work. So I actually do a Colorado legal contract. So mine has a scope of work that is preferred for the job. Any special instructions, it has a cost, and it has a date to be done. Even though I don't perform the work duties myself, once I get that contract and I have an approved scope, I can then turn that into one of my partner companies, and I can cap out the job. So it makes sense. So I could sign 10 jobs up this week. I could be paid on all 10 jobs by the end of the month. I have a pretty, hefty check off of 10 jobs, okay? With commercial roofing, though, if I was able to get to the shareholders or the board or whoever it is that's in charge, the property management company, and I could get the okay, hey, we're going to file an insurance claim today on this job. What is a realistic time frame? What's an expedited time frame? And then what is like this is how long it takes. And I'm only asking that because I heard you say it could take up to a couple of years. And in commercial or in residential roofing, from the time that the insurance or the storm date that the date of loss happened on a job, it doesn't matter if the homeowner waited 1 year and 10 months to file that claim. If they want to collect their RCV, they only have 2 months left to perform all the work duties. They only have 2 years from the time. With commercial, is it a little different?
Yeah, commercial, typically almost all commercial claims, you have 2 years minimum. Some of them don't expire either. So it could be 5 years later, and they could still pay for that roof.
Okay.
Commercial definitely is, it's a lot. It depends who you talk to, and depends what type of commercial you're going after. I mean, if you're going off after Amazon distribution centers, you have to get in with Amazon and their people, and you have to get vetted. And Amazon, they want $5 million max policy limits, not just on your commercial. Then you got to have commercial insurance, and then you got to have 3-story higher insurance. And you also got to have, some people want, like Amazon wants $2 to $3 million max policy limits on your truck. And you got to show them that you have this amount of trucks. I recently had to fill out information for a major current, a commercial client who has 250 plus buildings in Colorado. And they recently went with a new management company. They went from one group to a national company, international company. And that international company, I had to sit in a tutorial that was 4 hours, and there was over 2,000 people in there. And by the time I got done watching the tutorial, there was only like 200 people left watching. People, like, it was just so confusing. And then to get onboarded with them, you literally got to answer thousands of questions, and they want to know how many service trucks, how many service techs, how much do you charge per hour, how much for the service call, how much for emergency calls. You know, there's a lot, and it takes a team sometimes of people to do that. Now, these are major clients. They got billions of dollars, so they have to protect their investments. A lot of smaller clients, I had one that was a country store, and it was an opportunity. A friend of mine walked in, and he noticed they had stains, and it was leaking. And he said, "Hey, I know everything about roofing, and this guy knows a lot more, and he can get you a new roof." And I went up there, and I got them. This was a 40-square roof, and
what type of roofing system? 40 squares.
So they had several roofing systems.
Oh, okay.
They had 45-degree angled walls. They were going to the parapet walls. They had shingles and all different colors, and then they had a modified roof on one portion. Then they had a barrel roof that was PVC that dived into the modified roof, and then it had tapered edge and everything. So, and it was a mess. I have to admit, it was a big mess. So, the trick to that job was I got it up, and we identified hail. And we positively identified a leak underneath. And I let the guy run his assessment, and I let him assume liability and pay for that repair. And at the end of the day, once he paid for that repair, I built the roof and an Xactimate, and I threw all the spaghetti at the wall. And I sent him that estimate, and he was like, "What's this for?" I was like, "It's a re-roof." And a lot of that was because it had saturation. So how much do I tear off? And there's multiple layers. And before I get into this, now I got a mess. And, a lot of it, it's over 1 square. I got to pull a permit. I got to do it correctly. So now I'm doing the whole roof. On that particular job, I believe I made $116,000 on that job, 40 squares.
Okay.
And
so 100 again, and when you say that, because I could say, hey, I sold a $30,000, 30 square, roofing system today on a 2-story house with a 12-12 pitch, but I didn't make $30,000. Obviously, there's the cost of everything. So in reality, on that project, maybe there was a $6,000 profit margin or something. Okay, with that your project, hey, $130,000 or $160,000, whatever number you said. What is the profit margin? So if the job brought in 160, what is the company taking home out of that?
Profit margins on commercial are around 75%.
Oh, 75%.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So if you're doing everything right, and you know what you're doing, and you got good crews, you're going to make money. And as long as you know, especially when it's storm damage and you're supplementing everything correctly and you're getting all the money in there, you'll get it.
Yeah.
So and that's the thing, with these commercial roofs, a lot of it's opportunity. I mean, I would say a good 50% of it is being known and servicing them customers and getting in with them customers. The other 50% of it is opportunity, people you know. I mean, everybody I meet, I mean, even if they're not roofers and they're professionals and they're in the roofing they have professional jobs that are, they're outside of roofing, and I turn them into salesmen. I mean, I go to church. I want every person in that church to represent me. And I tell them, you get me commercial jobs. There's something in it for you. I had this last week. I was on there's a really great friend of mine, and he does bank security. He's like a cybersecurity expert for a major bank. Mm-hmm. And he refers a lot of people to me. And he referred someone to me on a 7-story high rise in Denver. And the customer called me. They thought, like, we're going to need a roof. So-and-so recommended you, and they strongly encourage you. And I'm like, hey, well, let me come down now. And I went down and looked at it, and the roof has hail damage.
Yeah. So this is a prime example of, and you hear this all the time, but your network is your net worth, meaning that anything to do with roofing or really any trades or salesmanship, obviously I think it's real important for the individual to begin to, spread their wings and meet people in different places. I know guys pick up jobs on golf courses. I know other people that, obviously pick up jobs at church or whatever, their mosque or different areas. Something I actually wanted to bring up that's almost like a niche for you is your wife is Asian, and you tend to do a lot of projects in the Asian community, which is a little different. Every time I talk to you, you're always doing some project. And so that allows you an opportunity to kind of reach a different market that you normally wouldn't be in. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been with my wife, I don't know, 5-6 years. I wish I could tell you exactly how long.
I won't tell her you don't know.
And my wife's 100% Chinese.
Okay.
And she, Chinese people have an impeccable work ethic. Mm-hmm. They believe in working 7 days a week and 14, 16-hour days, and they don't have hobbies. Their hobbies are they buy houses, and they believe in generational wealth. And instead of buying all this and that and wasting money on useless spending, they buy houses and more houses. And when they retire, their kids take care of them, and the grandparents take care of their grandkids. So Chinese people have a lot of faith in each other. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of trust in each other, and that, and their social status is huge. In America, I mean, I grew up, I've had personal brothers screw me over in the worst way, and in America, everybody takes advantage of everybody. But in China, if you screw one person over, you're done. I mean, you're basically walking down the street with an X on you everywhere you go, and you'll never get business. If you own a business, your business will be bankrupt instantly just by taking advantage of somebody or ripping somebody off. So
wow.
The Chinese, my wife, being in the Chinese community, she uses WeChat, and she has a WeChat group, and it's all the Chinese people in Colorado. And what's even greater about that is most Chinese people own more than one house. Mm-hmm. We have some customers that own hundreds of houses.
Really?
And a lot of Chinese people own a lot of commercial property. And, she gets on there, and she does really well. And she like on WeChat, you just post your advertisement on there, and then you just put $5 once a week, and it like does a random generator, and then splits the money up and gives anybody in the group randomly picks, it gives them lucky money, and everybody thanks you for it. And so she does that a lot. And she, on these groups, there's a lot of people who do roofing, windows, siding, painting, etc. And they go to this group looking for these people. And one of the things we have, and that we have a lot of, that my wife brings a lot of, is these Chinese realtors. They're not only realtors and agents. Chinese realtors are realtors. They're property managers, and they're also insurance agents. And they do all three. Well, like in America, like if he's an insurance agent for State Farm, he's just an insurance agent.
Right.
Well, they're everything. and they do it all, and they call us and they give us
They
a
wear
lot of
all the
work.
hats.
Oh yeah, so we do it all, and like we advertise in a Chinese newspaper, and guess what? I was on the Chinese newspaper's roof fixing their leak,
Right.
and they know us. We're well known, and they appreciate us a lot.
Yeah. So really what and the reason I bring that up is, I built an entire company literally off of a social media platform, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not talking about this company. I'm talking about lead generation business. And what it really was I was already networked with all these people that were involved in the industry that I was in, and they had developed trust with me, knowing that, similar to what you're talking about, but instead of like cultural, just business wise, right? They were very familiar with me being a roofing contractor. And so the natural progression is, well, I'm going to trust him because he knows the process, like on both sides of that. He understands like what it takes to qualify these homeowners, whether, they're going to be a valuable appointment coordinated, or what it's going to take to close the jobs, or what it feels like to drive 45 minutes and the person's not home, et cetera. And so I really think it's important, if you are a roofing contractor or you're new into roofing sales, to find what works for you. I have a friend named JD, and he moved here from, I think, Florida this last time, but I think he's from Texas originally, and he works for a company that Ben used to work for, and he is constantly getting customers at the golf course. He's constantly getting customers at the boat stores and these different things. And so really just finding what you're comfortable with and using that. It doesn't like take a lot of marketing dollars to generate some business. Before we go here, I do want to, just ask you a question about the roofing industry kind of in general. We hear a lot of different things about where the industry's headed, where insurance claim restoration's headed, all of these different things. Particularly around the residential markets, do you think that, obviously, commercial jobs already have high deductibles? They always have, but they're businesses, so they have the capacity to generate more income. So where do you really think the roofing industry is headed over the next few years? And is that going to affect commercial roofing sales as much as it's going to affect residential sales?
I don't think it's going to affect commercial roofing as much as it would affect residential sales. And to even be 100% honest with you, what Colorado is starting to see this year, Texas has been seeing for the last 10, 15 years.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of roofers that own roofing companies in Texas that are doing extremely well.
Mhm.
The biggest problem I see with commercial roofing and residential roofing, for that fact of the matter, is it's the vendors. The vendors are starting to reach into our pockets and take our money. And you got Beacon. They're a publicly traded company. They're one of the biggest roofing suppliers in the U.S. They made $33 billion last year. And they're bending us over and taking every penny they can. And then you got companies like Home Depot, who's owned like 5% of Home Depot is like one of their biggest shareholders is BlackRock. They own 5% of Home Depot. Mm-hmm. And they're the biggest hedge fund in the U.S. And Home Depot bought out SRS Roofing Supply last year for $18.5 billion. Mm-hmm. There's big money in this roofing business, mm-hmm. and there's always going to be. These people have a lot of money and a lot of people to do a lot of research. They wouldn't be making these dividends and making these big moves if they didn't think there wasn't money in the future.
Right.
But talking to a lot of roofers, a lot of these roofers are getting really upset with the vendors. Mm-hmm. Because these vendors are coming for our heads. And I just had this conversation with the vendor just before I came here, which was why I was late, 3 minutes late showing up. And the money's here. And the money's going to be here for commercial. And commercial's good if you have the people to go out and get it. And if I go out and not commercial every day, I'm going to get commercial jobs.
Right.
You got to go out and get it. You got to be thirsty for it, and you got to want it. But and a lot, even the small commercial jobs pay really well.
Right.
I could probably make more money on 10 commercials that make up 400 squares than I can one 400 square roof.
Right.
But it's a lot more jobs, a lot more responsibility. But at the end of the day, these commercial properties, most of the people you're dealing with are intellectual people who own businesses. I mean,
Right.
they're street savvy, they're business savvy, they're money motivated. They got friends that own properties, and these are investments. But the smaller the commercial, a lot of times, the less intellectual you're going to get in people. So I encourage it all. I want all the commercial properties. I mean, whether it's small or big.
Right.
So that's usually what I try to get. And I don't care if I go into somebody's, whether it's a 7-Eleven or a gas station or a country store or a grocery store.
You always looking at the drop ceiling to see if there's watermarks?
Yeah. I'm always looking up. And I was in Costco one time and by the coolers, and it literally was, I'm telling you, thousands of gallons were pouring in. It was so bad and it was so loud. I immediately found the manager. It was on a weekend. I'm like, look, I'm a commercial roofer. Here's my card. I mean, I can get up there and I can fix this. I can tell you what's wrong. I'm going to get here before anybody. He's like, well, we already put a call in, and, you have to be vetted and this and that. So a lot of it's opportunities. It's being at the right place, the right time. And a lot of times you just don't walk into one business. You don't give up. The more you put in your face, the more I'm in their face, the more they're going to see me. And eventually they're going to say, okay, we'll give you a chance. Right. So it's great to have a good portfolio or like a binder that has your business, and I'll pick out 10 businesses in a geographic, or 10 management companies in a certain area, like in the tech center. And I'll walk in with this. I already have all, excuse me, so I already have them copied on my COI. It's so easy to call my agent and say, can you put them on my COI? And then, so I have that paperwork in there, and then I have jobs, referrals, pictures, and stuff, what it looked like before and after. And I walk in and I say, here, well, I already got it copied on my COI, and here's my insurance. And my main focus is service and repairs. Right. And
just real quick, just so you guys know what he's talking about when he says copied on the COI, when you have, and because we're talking to roofing sales guys who I warn homeowners all the time probably don't have insurance, but when you have insurance documents, as an example, any company in the network of the roofing broker that's located on my website, I have insurance coverage, and I'm covered to work with them as well. And so it's usually the bottom left-hand corner of your insurance document. So he's saying preemptively, before showing up to the commercial project, I have it in mind. I've made my decision. I want to work with you. So I've already contacted my insurance agent, and I'm placing their name on that document. So when I show up, they know, hey, here's my book of business, and here is insurance coverage, workers' comp, and all of these things, so you know that we're covered. And I just, kind of wanted to fill you guys in on that so you were aware. And real quick, Ben, before we go, because we are running out of time here, I just wanted to ask you, one thing, if you could just give to the audience out there, anyone that's listening, and they're having a little bit of fear about making that leap either from residential to commercial, or maybe making the leap from commercial repairs to sales, what is one piece of advice that you would give them when either looking for the right company or looking just for the right opportunity? So let's kind of do both. Looking for the right company to sell commercial for, and or with, however you want to word that, and then looking for the right opportunity, which I think you just touched on, right place, right time, or different things. What is something you can give them as a little bit of encouragement for those two areas?
My best suggestion is for anybody that's looking into selling, whether it's residential or commercial, especially commercial, if that's what you want to do, if you have the experience, make sure that everything is talked about, and make sure that contract's signed, and make sure you have a copy of that contract, so you know what it is, what your commission. If you don't have a lot of experience in commercial, I would probably try to get in with somebody's salary plus commission. But you got to work, and you got to put the time in, and you got to go out and get the job. And you want to be with a company that has that experience and that knows how to sell commercial, and that knows how to do maintenance, and has maintenance plans and service plans, and good service techs. Whoever you're working for, if you go on to sell commercial, work for a company that's got a good service department. Okay. And because that's what's going to get you them commercials, and learn how to sell it, and be on the jobs, and learn how to build the job, because you can't sell a job if you don't know how to build it. I mean, the roofers, they may know how to build it, but you can't rely on them to build your roof. You need to know how to do that yourself. And then especially if it's storm, you got to learn how to build it and Xactimate. You got to know all the parts and pieces to put that roof together. It's like a big giant puzzle.
Right. So what's a piece of hope that you can give them in coming into that? Not all the difficult things, but what's
Yeah.
something you can tell them, like, hey, if you're thinking about making this leap, you want to, obviously, what's something they can do what's an easier path to acquiring their first commercial roofing project?
Get out there and knock doors. That's how you get them. I got a lot of jobs last year from friends, and one job I got, an example, was a friend of mine walked into this country store. I've mentioned this country store many times because my friend walked into that country store and he referred me. And I got the job, and I gave that friend a $5,000 referral because it was a very profitable job.
Nice.
And I told him, I said, I'll give you 5%. And it's the same thing. I hate to say it, but it's the same thing with these property managers and stuff.
Right.
You better hope you have them. I mean, it's not negative. If you're making big money, you can afford to buy them a Louis Vuitton bag because that's what they want.
Right.
It's and that's what it's come to today. But the money is amazing.
Right.
You can make amazing money, and I've done commercial roofs where it took me less than probably 30 days. The insurance company was jacking around, and I had the insurance company do an emergency coating. I made great money on the coating. And once after we coated the roof, I ended up roofing the roof two weeks later, and that job I made a lot of money on.
Nice.
Even jobs that are ACV in the commercial, I did a big roof around 300 squares. It was an ACV, and the roof was like a 600,000. I'd say around 640, 50,000. The property owner got 274,000. I did the roof, and I still made 74,000.
Okay.
Now imagine if it was full replacement cost value.
Right.
I would have made 374,000. You know, so there's good money in it, and you got to get after it. You got to go out there and get it. You know, you got to be hungry. You got to want it.
Well, hey, man, I really do appreciate you coming in today. For those of you guys who don't know Ben, he's not like the flashy guy on social media or at all the conferences, but he has been in the industry for a very long time. His name is Ben Laird from Precise Roofing in Denver, Colorado. So if you're looking to maybe get into the commercial roofing space, I know that I've called with many questions, and he's always taken ample time to answer those questions. Or maybe you're in the Denver metro area. We've had plenty of storms over the last couple of years, and you're running thin on residential, or you're tired of knocking homeowners' doors for $1,500 and $1,800 paychecks at the end of the week. Maybe reach out to him. I know that he's on Facebook. You can find him on my Facebook. I also want to just thank everyone for coming and watching the podcast today. This is our first episode of the Roofing Mastermind. We're going to continue this process, and you can check us out on any major podcasting platform. We will be uploading all of the videos on there. And again, Ben, I do just want to say thank you one more time for coming out.
Thank you. It's a great opportunity for me as well. And, I love helping people, and I'll help anybody that doesn't have a lot of experience in roofing. I don't look at all my roofing competitors as competitors. I like to make friends. So I like to network with people and have fellowship and talk with like-minded people. And I like to see people grow. I'm not one of them people, there's a lot of roofers out there, when their salesmen leave, they're upset and hell-bent and don't want them to be successful. But I tell my salesmen, you come work for me. I mean, if you have your ulterior motives to get your own company, I'll help you.
Nice.
I want to see you be successful, because you're a product of me. So I want to make sure that, I'm representing myself well and representing you as well. So
nice. Well, everyone, I am Eli King. I'm everyone's favorite roofing contractor, and I hope you join us on the next episode of the Roofing Mastermind. Come join us, and let's talk roofing.